Taylor King stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his Manhattan penthouse, a glass of amber liquid glinting in his hand, surveying the sprawling metropolis below. At 35, he wasn't merely observing the city. He was a conqueror admiring his kingdom, a financial titan who had forged an empire through a relentless pursuit of power and an unshakable belief in his own invincibility. His name resonated through the highest echelons of global finance, a testament to ruthless business acumen and strategic foresight. Money, power, and the most coveted circles of society came to him with an effortless ease that bordered on the predestined. He was a man accustomed to getting precisely what he wanted, exactly when he wanted it, a principle that had guided his every ascent. Tonight, his penthouse was an opulent tableau of New York's elite, a celebration marking yet another audacious merger that had further solidified Taylor's vast wealth. The air was thick with the clinking of champagne flutes, the soft hum of sophisticated chatter, and the echoing laughter of beautiful women, their voices a melodic counterpoint to the city's distant roar. Taylor moved through the throng with a practiced indifference, a master of social navigation, accepting congratulations and admiring glances with equal, almost robotic composure. His competitive spirit, honed in boardrooms and etched into his very being, often found its outlet in these high-stakes negotiations, where victory was the only currency that mattered. "Taylor, my friend." The voice cut through the ambient noise, a familiar cadence that instantly registered. Eric White, a figure as complex as Taylor himself, his oldest friend, yet also his fiercest rival, approached with a grin that Taylor recognized instantly. That grin, honed over decades of competitive camaraderie, always signaled trouble, a challenge lurking beneath the surface. Eric was one of the rare few who dared to challenge Taylor without consequence, their bond forged in the crucible of shared ambition. They had grown up together, their lives intertwined through an endless series of competitions, academic triumphs in college, high-stakes business deals, even vying for the affections of women. Their friendship was a delicate balance, built on mutual respect and the relentless churn of constant competition. "Eric," Taylor acknowledged, raising his glass in a silent toast. "Enjoying the party?" "Always," Eric replied, his eyes gleaming with a mischievous spark that belied the casual tone. "But I've been thinking about something. You and I, we've competed in everything, haven't we? Business, sports, even women." Taylor's lips curved into a confident smirk, a reflection of his track record. "And I've won most of those competitions." "Most," Eric conceded with a hearty laugh, the sound carrying a hint of a deeper game. "But I've got a challenge for you tonight, one I don't think you can win." The atmosphere in the room subtly shifted. Conversations near them dwindled, the surrounding guests sensing the unspoken tension, the prelude to a public wager between titans. Taylor set down his glass, the delicate crystal meeting marble with a soft thud. His competitive instincts, dormant for a fleeting moment, immediately surged to the forefront, sharp and demanding. "I'm listening." Eric leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that, paradoxically, still carried to the nearby crowd, drawing them into the unfolding drama. "I bet you couldn't marry a woman who doesn't fit your usual type. Someone who wouldn't normally turn your head, and you'd have to stay married for 6 months. Taylor's eyebrows rose, a flicker of genuine surprise crossing his otherwise unreadable face. "That's your challenge? Marriage?" The very concept seemed alien in his transactional world. "Not just any marriage," Eric continued, his grin widening, a predatory gleam in his eyes. "A real marriage, living together, acting like a couple, no separate bedrooms, no running away when it gets difficult, 6 full months." "And what do I get when I win?" Taylor asked, the question delivered with the absolute certainty of a man who never entertained the possibility of defeat. His internal calculus already assessed the risks, the potential rewards. Eric, sensing his hook was set, pulled out his phone, displaying a number that made even the billionaire pause. $5 million, plus bragging rights for the rest of our lives. A collective gasp rippled through the immediate crowd. $5 million was a paltry sum to Taylor, barely a rounding error in his vast portfolio. But the challenge itself, the intricate game, the chance to prove yet again that he could conquer anything, any situation, any person, that truly meant everything. This wasn't about money. It was about the fundamental validation of his control over the world, a strategic maneuver in the chess game of his existence. "And if I refuse?" Taylor asked, a theatrical pause, though he already knew his answer. "Then everyone here will know that Taylor King, the man who claims he can win at anything, was afraid of a simple marriage." Taylor laughed, a sound that carried both amusement and an almost arrogant self-assurance. "Afraid? I've never been afraid of anything in my life. You have yourself a deal, Eric. 6 months. I'll show you exactly how this game is played." The words hung in the air, a bold declaration of intent. Eric's grin, now turning calculating, solidified. "Perfect, because I already have someone in mind. Her name is Maya Brown." The seed of their intertwined destiny had been sown. Days later, Taylor found himself in an upscale cafe, a stark contrast to his usual power lunch venues, waiting for his first meeting with Maya Brown. Eric had sent him a single photo and a brief, almost clinical description. Confident, independent, works as a social worker, not impressed by wealth. The photo revealed a woman with warm brown eyes and a genuine, unpretentious smile, her figure fuller than the svelte models Taylor typically dated. He had glanced at the picture for precisely 5 seconds, a cursory assessment, before dismissing it and tucking his phone away. To Taylor, this was merely another business transaction, another deal to be closed, albeit an unusual one. He approached it with the same detachment he would a hostile takeover bid. When Maya walked into the cafe, Taylor's initial observation was not of her physical appearance in relation to his type, but rather the quiet, almost defiant confidence with which she carried herself. There was no hesitation in her step, no perceptible self-consciousness about her size, and most notably, no apparent desire to impress him, the infamous Taylor King. She wore a simple gray dress that suited her understated elegance, her hair neatly gathered in a bun. Her gaze swept the room, locating him instantly, and she walked over with a deliberate purpose that left no room for pretense. "You must be Taylor King," Maya said, extending her hand before he could even rise, taking control of the initial interaction. Her voice was steady, composed. "And you must be Maya Brown," Taylor replied, taking her hand. Her grip was firm, confident, completely devoid of the usual deference he encountered. "Please, sit down." Maya settled into the chair directly opposite him, her eyes immediately studying his face with an intensity that made him, a man rarely rattled, feel a sliver of discomfort. Most women looked at him with a mix of admiration, desire, or apprehension. Maya looked at him as if she were reading a book, a complex narrative whose ending she already knew. "Let's not waste time with pleasantries," Maya began, her hands folded calmly on the table, her directness disarming. "I know about the bet. I know Eric challenged you to marry someone outside your type. I know you agreed because you can't resist a competition, a game of conquest. And I know you expect this to be a simple 6-month arrangement where you throw money at me until I fall in line, another asset acquired." Taylor leaned back, genuinely surprised, a sensation he hadn't experienced in years. Her blunt assessment, devoid of emotion, struck him with the force of an unexpected blow. "Eric told you everything?" "Eric is more honest than you'd think," Maya replied with a faint, almost melancholic smile. "He thought I deserved to know the truth before meeting you. He also thought I'd refuse, but I didn't." "Why?" Taylor asked, his curiosity genuinely piqued. This woman defied his every expectation, his carefully constructed categories. Maya's smile faded slightly, replaced by an expression Taylor couldn't quite identify. Sadness, resignation, a quiet weariness that seemed to hint at untold burdens. "Let's just say I have my reasons. They're personal, and they're mine. You don't need to know them to complete your bet." The boundary was drawn, firm and unyielding. "Fair enough," Taylor said, though he felt a strange, almost visceral frustration at her secrecy. He was accustomed to understanding people, to dissecting their motivations, to finding their weaknesses and leveraging them. Maya, from this very first encounter, was already proving to be far more complex, more enigmatic than he had anticipated. "So, you're willing to go through with this? 6 months of marriage?" "Under certain conditions," Maya stated firmly, her gaze unwavering. "I want my own space within whatever home we share. I want to continue my work without interference. My commitment to my community is non-negotiable. I want respect, even if I don't have your love. And when the 6 months are over, we walk away cleanly. No drama, no complications, a complete severing of ties, just as any other business agreement concludes." Taylor considered her terms. They were reasonable, surprisingly so. In fact, easier than he had expected, fitting neatly into his transactional view of the world. "Agreed. Anything else?" "Yes," Maya said, her eyes meeting his with that same intense, probing gaze. "Don't try to change me, Taylor. Don't try to make me into one of your usual women, a polished accessory. I am who I am, and that's not going to change just because I'm wearing your ring or living in your penthouse." Something in the way she delivered the warning made Taylor pause. There was undeniable strength in her voice, but beneath it, he detected a hint of vulnerability he couldn't quite place, a guarded wall protecting something precious. "I wouldn't dream of it," he said, the words slipping out automatically. Yet, even as he spoke them, a faint tremor of doubt echoed in his mind. Could he truly resist the urge to mold, to conquer, to improve? His nature dictated otherwise. Their second meeting took place in the sterile, hushed environment of Taylor's lawyer's office, a setting perfectly aligned with the purely transactional nature of their impending union. Here, amid stacks of legal documents, they signed the prenuptial agreement and the marriage papers. It was cold, businesslike, and efficient, precisely what Taylor preferred. Maya, however, did not simply sign. She read every page meticulously, her brow furrowed in concentration, asking intelligent, incisive questions that impressed even Taylor's seasoned attorney. She signed with a steady hand, no tears, no second thoughts, no trace of romantic delusion about the reality of their arrangement. This was a contract, plain and simple. "We're getting married next week," Taylor informed her as they exited the office, his tone equally devoid of emotion. "Small ceremony, just the legal requirements. I've already arranged everything." "Of course you have," Maya replied, a hint of dry amusement in her voice, a subtle challenge to his authority. "You're used to controlling every situation, aren't you? Every variable, every outcome." "It's served me well so far," Taylor said, not bothering to hide his inherent arrogance, a trait as much a part of him as his name. Maya stopped walking, turning to face him, her posture radiating an unexpected gravitas. "Taylor, let me tell you something. I'm not one of your business deals. I'm not a company you can acquire or a competitor you can crush. The next 6 months are going to teach you something you've never learned." "And what's that?" Taylor asked, crossing his arms, an unconscious defensive gesture. "That some things can't be won," Maya said softly, her voice carrying an unexpected weight, a philosophical depth that resonated with a truth he had never encountered. "Some things can only be earned." The words hung in the air, a prophecy Taylor was yet to understand. The wedding took place exactly 1 week later in a small, impersonal courthouse ceremony. Taylor, impeccably suited, projected an image of effortless power. Maya wore a simple white dress, chosen for its practicality rather than its grandeur. Eric served as their lone witness, his knowing smile a constant irritant to Taylor, a subtle reminder of the bet's pervasive shadow. The judge, accustomed to such hurried unions, pronounced them husband and wife in less than 10 minutes. There was no kiss, no celebratory embrace, no joy in the air, just two people, legally bound together by a high-stakes bet and a deepening well of unspoken secrets. After the ceremony, Taylor drove Maya to his penthouse. She was quiet during the drive, her gaze fixed on the cityscape passing by, a silent observer in her own life. Taylor found himself stealing glances at her, a rare surge of introspection stirring within him. He tried to decipher her thoughts, her emotions, but she remained an enigma, and that, perhaps more than anything, frustrated him. He was a man who prided himself on reading people, on predicting market shifts and human behavior, yet Maya remained an unreadable cipher. "Welcome home," Taylor said, the words echoing slightly in the vastness of the penthouse as they entered. The space was immense, a monument to his success, decorated in a sleek, ultra-modern style, adorned with expensive art and designer furniture. It was a testament to his wealth, his power, his aesthetic of absolute control. Maya walked through the space slowly, taking it all in, her expression neutral, unimpressed, a quiet defiance in her lack of awe. "It's very you," she finally said, her tone devoid of judgment or flattery. "Is that a compliment?" Taylor asked, a flicker of irritation. "It's an observation," Maya replied, her gaze meeting his. "Where's my space?" Taylor led her to a bedroom suite on the opposite end of the penthouse from his own, a strategic distance mirroring their initial agreement. It boasted its own private bathroom, a sitting area, and a balcony offering breathtaking views of the city below. He had ensured it was decorated by an expensive designer, filled with luxurious furniture and artwork he believed she might appreciate. Another attempt to win her over through material offerings. Maya stood in the doorway for a long moment, surveying the opulent space. 6 months, Taylor. Not a day more. Her voice was a soft, firm reminder of their contract's rigid timeline. 6 months, he agreed, the words sealing their unusual pact. And so began their strange cohabitation, a unique social experiment unfolding within the glass walls of Taylor King's fortress of solitude. The first few weeks of their marriage were a masterclass in frustration for Taylor King. He had entered the arrangement with an unshakable conviction that he would maintain absolute control, that Maya would eventually bend to his will, just like everyone else in his carefully orchestrated life. He was profoundly, fundamentally wrong. Maya, a force of quiet defiance, refused almost every offering. When he presented her with exquisite, expensive jewelry, she politely but firmly declined. When he suggested shopping sprees at exclusive designer boutiques, she laughed, a genuine, unpretentious sound, and stated that her existing wardrobe suited her just fine. When he meticulously arranged for them to attend high society events, she frequently found polite yet firm excuses to stay home. Her commitment to her work at the community center, where she had been employed for years, remained unwavering. She left early each morning, returning in the evening with stories of the families she had helped, narratives that underscored a world entirely alien to Taylor's. "You don't have to work anymore," Taylor told her one morning over breakfast, his frustration barely contained. "I have more than enough money to support us both, to provide for every possible need." Maya looked up from her coffee, her eyes steady, piercing through his assumptions. "I don't work because I need money, Taylor. I work because it matters. Because those families need someone who cares, someone who truly sees them. Can you understand that?" "I understand that you're making this more difficult than it needs to be," Taylor replied, his patience wearing thin, his control slipping. "Good," Maya said simply, returning to her coffee, her retort a subtle but powerful assertion of her autonomy. But amidst his frustration, Taylor began to notice subtle, troubling things. Maya would sometimes skip meals, claiming she wasn't hungry, though he suspected otherwise. She consistently declined invitations to expensive restaurants, preferring to eat simple, often meager, food at home. On several occasions, he found her sitting on her balcony in the evening, looking utterly exhausted, a weariness that seemed to emanate from a deeper well than mere physical exertion from her work. It was a profound tiredness, etched into her very being. One evening, Taylor came home earlier than expected. As he approached Maya's suite, he heard her on the phone. Her door was slightly ajar, and he paused in the hallway, an uncharacteristic hesitation gripping him. He knew he shouldn't listen, but a burgeoning sense of unease, coupled with his innate need for information, compelled him to stay. "I know, Mom. I'm being careful," Maya was saying, her voice soft, almost fragile. "Yes, I'm taking my medications." A pause, then a whispered, "No, he doesn't know." There's no reason to tell him. It's only 6 months, and then everything goes back to normal. A sudden chill ran through Taylor. Medications. What didn't he know? The word hung heavy in the air, loaded with unspoken implications. He wanted to burst into the room, to demand answers, to strip away her secrecy. But something, an unfamiliar constraint, held him back. Maya had made it explicitly clear she valued her privacy, and despite his growing curiosity, his burgeoning unease, he found himself respecting that boundary in a way he never had before with anyone in his life. The enigma of Maya Brown was deepening, drawing him into a mystery he couldn't simply solve with money or power. Their fights, once sporadic, became more frequent, more intense, sharp clashes of two fundamentally different worldviews. Taylor's attempts to assert control over the situation met Maya's immovable resistance, and neither was willing to concede ground. "Why won't you let me in?" Taylor demanded one night after Maya had refused yet another invitation to a high-profile business gala. "Why do you insist on keeping these walls between us, this impenetrable facade?" "Because you wouldn't understand," Maya shot back, her eyes flashing with a raw, unvarnished emotion he rarely saw. "You live in a world where everything can be bought, where every problem has a solution if you just throw enough money at it. Some things aren't like that, Taylor. Some things just are, beyond the reach of your wealth or influence." "Try me," Taylor said, his voice dropping to something almost pleading, an uncharacteristic vulnerability seeping through his carefully constructed defenses. "Maybe I'm not as shallow as you think." Maya studied his face for a long moment, and Taylor saw something in her eyes that looked like profound regret, a sorrow he couldn't quite comprehend. "Maybe you're not," she said softly, the admission laced with a melancholy acceptance. "But that doesn't change anything." Despite the escalating tension, the constant friction, Taylor found himself increasingly drawn to Maya. It wasn't merely physical attraction, though he was slowly beginning to find her beautiful in ways that surprised and intrigued him, a beauty that transcended superficial aesthetics. It was something deeper, something profoundly unsettling, something that confused and frustrated his rational, analytical mind. She was intelligent, fiercely passionate about her work, quick-witted in their verbal sparring matches, and utterly immune to his usual charms, his carefully honed repertoire of seduction. She treated him like a person, not a bank account, not a status symbol, and that, paradoxically, was both refreshing and terrifying. He started paying closer attention to her daily routines, a meticulous observation that mirrored his corporate intelligence gathering. She woke early, always made her own simple breakfast, and disappeared into her room most evenings, a sanctuary of privacy. She rarely asked him for anything, never seemed impressed by his immense wealth or his formidable status, maintaining her fierce independence with a quiet, unwavering determination. But the subtle signs he'd noticed before became more pronounced, more alarming. Maya sometimes gripped the counter when she stood up too quickly, a fleeting moment of lost balance. She occasionally took deep, almost gasping breaths, as if fighting off a dizzy spell. Once, he saw her wince and press her hand to her chest, a flash of undeniable pain crossing her face before she swiftly composed herself, her walls snapping back into place. "Are you all right?" he'd asked that time, his voice laced with concern, unable to entirely conceal his growing apprehension. "Fine," she'd replied quickly, a dismissive wave of her hand. "Just a muscle cramp." Taylor didn't believe her, but he didn't push. Not yet. His investigative instincts were screaming, but something held him back from a direct confrontation. 3 months into their arrangement, things came to a dramatic head at a charity gala, an event Taylor had insisted they attend together. It was important for his business image, he'd argued, leveraging their contractual obligation, and Maya had finally, reluctantly, agreed. She wore a simple blue dress she'd owned for years, stubbornly refusing the designer gown Taylor had sent to her room, another quiet act of rebellion. Her hair was pulled back elegantly, And despite his exasperation with her stubbornness, Taylor found himself thinking, with a surprising clarity, that she looked undeniably beautiful, a radiance that transcended the designer labels he associated with beauty. The gala was held at a luxurious hotel, a glittering assembly of New York's wealthiest elite, their conversations a tapestry of power and privilege. Taylor moved through the crowd with practiced ease, introducing Maya as his wife, conducting hushed business deals between champagne toasts, a master of his domain. Maya, however, stayed close but quiet, observing everything with those intelligent, perceptive eyes, her silence often more potent than any words. Then Taylor heard it, a cluster of women standing near the bar, their voices, sharp with malice, carrying across the opulent room. "That's Taylor King's wife? I heard it was some kind of bet. She's so large. What could he possibly see in her? Money can't buy good taste, apparently." Their cruel laughter, a venomous, dismissive sound, cut through the ambient noise, echoing in the vast space. Taylor felt a surge of cold, incandescent rage building in his chest, a primal, protective instinct he hadn't known he possessed. But before he could move, before he could retaliate, he realized Maya had heard them too. Her face remained perfectly composed, a mask of practiced indifference, but he saw the fleeting flash of pain in her eyes, the almost imperceptible tremble in her hand as she set down her champagne glass. "Excuse me," Maya said quietly, her voice barely a whisper, starting to walk away, seeking an escape. Taylor grabbed her hand, his grip firm, resolute. "No, don't give them that satisfaction." He turned toward the group of gossiping women, his expression hardening into something cold and utterly furious. The entire room seemed to sense the abrupt shift in atmosphere. Conversations died, heads turned, drawn to the looming confrontation. "Ladies," Taylor said, his voice cutting through the sudden silence like a shard of ice, carrying a chilling authority. "I couldn't help but overhear your conversation. Let me clarify something for everyone here." He pulled Maya closer, his arm wrapping around her waist protectively, a gesture of ownership and defense. "My wife is worth more than everyone in this room combined. She dedicates her life to helping people who actually need it, not throwing charity galas to make ourselves feel important. She has more integrity, intelligence, and genuine beauty than any of you could ever hope to possess. And anyone who has a problem with that can leave my presence immediately." The room was dead silent. The women who had been gossiping looked utterly mortified, their faces paling. Maya stared up at Taylor, her eyes wide with surprise, and something else, something that made his heart beat faster, a flicker of emotion he couldn't yet define. "We're leaving," Taylor announced to the stunned room. He took Maya's hand, his fingers intertwined with hers, and led her out of the gala, ignoring the whispers and stares that followed their exit. Outside, under the vast, indifferent night sky, Maya finally spoke. "You didn't have to do that." Her voice was soft, laced with a tremor of emotion. "Yes, I did," Taylor said firmly, his resolve unwavering. "No one talks about my wife that way. No one." "Your wife for 6 months," Maya reminded him, but her voice was softer than usual, the edge of her usual pragmatism blunted. Taylor looked at her, truly looked at her, and a terrifying realization dawned on him, striking him with the force of an epiphany. "Maybe I don't want it to be just 6 months anymore." Maya's eyes filled with sudden tears, which she quickly blinked away, her defenses still strong. "Don't say things you don't mean, Taylor." "I mean it," he insisted, his voice raw with a nascent emotion he barely understood. "Maya, She pressed a finger gently to his lips, cutting him off. "Take me home, Taylor, please." The ride back to the penthouse was silent, heavy with unspoken words, with the weight of a boundary crossed, a truth revealed. Taylor kept stealing glances at Maya, trying to understand the profound sadness he saw etched in her face. Something was deeply wrong, something beyond the confines of their arranged marriage, and he was now determined to uncover what it was. The game had changed. His competitive drive had found a new, terrifying focus. They had barely stepped into the penthouse when it happened. Maya took 3 steps into the expansive living room and suddenly swayed, her hand reaching out for the wall but finding only empty air. Taylor lunged forward, his instincts kicking in, catching her just as her legs gave out beneath her. "Maya!" His voice was sharp with panic, a raw, unadulterated fear he hadn't experienced since childhood. Her face was pale, her breathing shallow, labored. "Maya, stay with me. Look at me." Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused, her gaze distant. "Taylor, don't talk. Just breathe." He was already pulling out his phone, dialing emergency services with shaking hands, his usual composure utterly shattered. "I need an ambulance now. My wife collapsed. We're at the King Tower penthouse." The next 20 minutes were the longest of Taylor's life. He held Maya in his arms on the floor, terrified to move her, yet equally terrified to let her go, his world shrinking to the fragile warmth of her body against his. She drifted in and out of consciousness, murmuring disjointed words he couldn't understand, each syllable a shard of glass in his heart. When the paramedics finally arrived, their movements were swift, efficient, a whirlwind of trained professionalism. They checked her vitals, administered preliminary care, and then carefully loaded her onto a stretcher. "I'm riding with her," Taylor insisted, his voice hoarse, following them into the ambulance without a moment's hesitation. "Are you family?" one paramedic asked, the routine question cutting through his panic. "I'm her husband," Taylor said, and in that moment, he realized it was the first time he'd uttered those words and truly, profoundly meant them. The bet, the contract, the arrogance, all of it dissolved into the crucible of genuine fear and burgeoning love. At the hospital, Taylor paced the waiting room like a caged animal, his mind a tempest of fear and self-recrimination. He called Eric, who arrived within 30 minutes, his usual composure replaced by a grim concern. Taylor tried calling Maya's mother but couldn't find a number. He felt utterly helpless, useless, terrified in a way he had never experienced before, a raw vulnerability that stripped away all his layers of wealth and power. Finally, a doctor emerged, her presence a beacon of hope or dread. "Mr. King, I'm Dr. Grace Lee. I've been treating your wife." "Is she all right? What happened?" Taylor demanded, immediately approaching her, his voice a frantic whisper. Dr. Lee gestured to a quieter corner of the waiting room, her expression serious, professional, but tinged with a palpable sympathy. "Your wife is stable now, but we need to discuss her condition. Were you aware that Maya has been dealing with serious health complications?" Taylor felt the ground shift beneath him, the stable edifice of his world cracking. "What complications?" "Maya has severe hypertension and early-stage heart disease, complicated by her weight," Dr. Lee explained carefully, her words measured and stark. "Her heart is under significant strain. The medications she's been taking help manage the symptoms, but her condition has been deteriorating." "Deteriorating?" Taylor's voice was barely a whisper, the implications sinking in like cold stones. "How long has this been going on?" "According to her medical records, she was diagnosed about 8 months ago," Dr. Lee said, her gaze sympathetic. "The condition is manageable with aggressive lifestyle changes. Significant weight loss, diet modification, regular exercise, and continued medication. But if left untreated, or if she continues her current lifestyle, the prognosis is concerning." Taylor felt like he'd been punched in the gut, a physical blow that left him gasping for air. 8 months ago, before their marriage, before the bet. Suddenly, Maya's enigmatic behavior, her quiet sadness, her resolute secrecy, her acceptance of the marriage, her insistence on a limited time frame, it all made a terrible, heartbreaking, perfect sense. She hadn't been making this difficult out of stubbornness. She had been fighting for her life, alone, under the shadow of a ticking clock. "Can I see her?" Taylor asked, his voice breaking, barely recognizable to himself. "She's awake, room 412. Taylor didn't remember walking to the elevator, nor the endless hospital corridor. He only knew that when he pushed open the door to room 412 and saw Maya lying in the hospital bed, looking small and vulnerable in a way she never had before, something inside him, The hardened, arrogant core of Taylor King shattered completely. "Hi," Maya said softly, attempting a weak, fragile smile. "I guess the secret's out." Taylor crossed the room and sank into the chair beside her bed, his head in his hands. "Why didn't you tell me?" Maya looked away, tears silently sliding down her cheeks, tracing paths of sorrow on her pale skin. "What would have been the point? You married me for a bet, Taylor. 6 months and done, remember? My health problems weren't part of the contract." "That's not—" Taylor started, then stopped, struggling to find the right words that could possibly convey the maelstrom of emotions swirling within him. "You would have what?" Maya interrupted, her voice bitter, laced with self-pity and pain. "Felt sorry for me? Treated me like I was fragile? I didn't want your pity, Taylor. I still don't." "It's not pity," Taylor insisted, reaching for her hand. She tried to pull away, but he held on firmly, his grip gentle but resolute, a silent plea. "Maya, please tell me the truth. All of it." She was quiet for a long moment, staring at their joined hands, as if drawing strength from their connection. When she finally spoke, her voice was small, broken, a fragile whisper. "I was diagnosed 8 months ago. The doctors said that if I didn't make significant changes, I had maybe 5 years, maybe less. I tried, Taylor. I really tried. But losing weight, changing everything about my life, it's harder than people think, especially when you're alone." "You're not alone anymore," Taylor said immediately, his voice fierce with conviction, a promise forged in the fires of fear and revelation. Maya laughed sadly, a hollow, mirthless sound. "I'm alone in 3 months. That was the deal. When Eric told me about the bet, I thought—" She paused, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "I thought maybe for 6 months I could pretend. I could pretend someone cared about me, that I mattered to someone beyond my family. I could experience what it felt like to be married, even if it was fake. I know it's pathetic, but I just wanted to feel loved, even if it wasn't real." Taylor felt tears burning in his own eyes, a searing pain in his chest. "Maya, you can't think like that. You have so much time left. We can fix this. We— Maya pulled her hand away, finally, decisively. "There is no we, Taylor. There are 3 more months of a contract, and then we both go back to our real lives. Don't make this more complicated than it needs to be." "It's already complicated," Taylor said desperately, his voice raw. "Maya, I care about you. These past 3 months, you've changed something in me. I don't want to walk away in 3 months. I want to help you. I want to be here for you." "You don't mean that," Maya whispered, but Taylor could hear the fragile hope, the desperate yearning underneath the doubt. "I do," he insisted, his gaze unwavering, full of a fierce, newfound determination. "Let me prove it to you. Let me help you fight this." Maya looked at him for a long moment, searching his face for something. Sincerity, resolve, a glimpse of the real man beneath the layers of arrogance. Whatever she saw there made fresh tears spill down her cheeks, a torrent of emotion unleashed. "Okay," she said finally, so softly he almost didn't hear it, a fragile surrender. "Okay." Taylor leaned forward and pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead, a promise, a silent vow. "We're going to get through this together." For the first time since their marriage began, Maya smiled at him, a genuine warmth radiating from her, a glimmer of light in the darkness. Together. Taylor King had faced many challenges in his life, conquered countless corporate battles, but none had ever felt as profoundly important as this one. As he sat beside Maya's hospital bed, holding her hand through the long, silent night, he realized that for the first time in his life, he was fighting for something that mattered more than money or pride or winning a bet. He was fighting for Maya, for her life, for their future, and he would not, could not, lose. The stakes were too high, the prize too precious. The next morning, Dr. Lee returned, a comprehensive treatment plan in hand. Aggressive weight loss through strict diet and consistent exercise, continued medication, regular monitoring, and profound lifestyle changes. "It will be difficult," she warned, her voice grave, but it is Maya's best chance at a long, healthy life. We'll do whatever it takes, Taylor said firmly, decisively, before Maya could even respond, his voice ringing with absolute conviction. Dr. Lee smiled, a rare warmth in her professional demeanor. That's exactly the support she needs, Mr. King. Your involvement in this process will be crucial. Studies show that patients with strong, committed support systems have much higher success rates. After Dr. Lee left, Taylor turned to Maya, his eyes resolute. We start today. No arguments. Taylor, you don't have to— Yes, I do, he interrupted, his voice firm, leaving no room for debate. Maya, I'm not doing this because of some contract or obligation. I'm doing this because I care about you. Because somewhere in the last 3 months you became the most important person in my life, and I'll be damned if I lose you now. Maya's eyes filled with tears again, a complex mix of emotion. What happened to you? Where's the arrogant businessman who married me for a bet? Taylor smiled sadly, a genuine, heartfelt expression she had never seen before. You happened to me, Maya. You showed me what actually matters, what true wealth really is. Now let me show you what you mean to me. When they returned to the penthouse 3 days later, Taylor had already transformed the space. The kitchen, once a minimalist showpiece, was now stocked with healthy, organic food, reflecting a radical shift in priorities. He'd hired a renowned nutritionist and a dedicated personal trainer, assembling a small team focused solely on Maya's well-being. More remarkably, he'd cleared his demanding schedule for the next several weeks, delegating his business responsibilities to his most trusted executives, a move that sent ripples of speculation through the corporate world. This is too much, Maya protested, looking around at the profound changes, the palpable shift in their environment. It's not enough, Taylor replied, his resolve unyielding. Maya, I'm going to do this with you, every single step. We're partners now, truly and completely. And so began their new life together. A life defined not by wealth or status, but by a shared, urgent purpose. Taylor woke up at 5:30 every morning, a feat he had never accomplished willingly in his life. He and Maya would dress in workout clothes and go for long walks in Central Park. At first, Maya could barely make it around one loop before exhaustion and pain overwhelmed her. Taylor held her hand, encouraged her with unwavering patience, and slowed his pace to match hers, his presence a constant, comforting anchor. I can't do this, Maya gasped one morning, stopping to catch her breath, her body aching, her spirit flagging. It's too hard. Yes, you can, Taylor said firmly, taking both her hands in his gaze intense, full of belief. Look at me, Maya. You are the strongest person I know. You faced everything life has thrown at you with incredible courage and dignity. This is just one more challenge, and this time you don't have to face it alone. Maya looked up at him, her eyes shining with unshed tears, a profound question in their depths. Why are you doing this? Really? Taylor cupped her face gently, his thumb brushing away a stray tear. Because I love you. I think I've been falling in love with you since the moment you walked into that cafe and called me out on my arrogance, because you're brilliant and kind, and you see people, truly see them, in a way I never did. Because when I look at you, I see my future, and that future needs you healthy and by my side. You love me? Maya whispered, as if the words were too incredible to comprehend, a fragile hope blooming in her eyes. I love you, Taylor confirmed, his voice thick with emotion. Not the woman I thought I was marrying, not some temporary arrangement. You, Maya, exactly as you are, and I'm going to spend every day proving it to you. They stood there in Central Park as the sun rose over the city, casting a golden glow on their faces, and Maya finally, tentatively, leaned up and kissed him. It was their first real kiss, soft, sweet, and exquisitely tender, brimming with promise, and the dawn of a new, profound connection. When they pulled apart, Taylor saw hope, radiant and undeniable, blooming in Maya's eyes for the very first time. The weeks that followed were arduous, a testament to Maya's resilience and Taylor's unwavering support. Maya struggled with the radical diet changes, with the constant physical demands of exercise, with the profound physical and emotional challenges of transforming her entire life. There were days when she wanted to give up, days when she cried from sheer frustration and pain. But Taylor was there for all of it. He changed his own diet to match hers, even though he didn't need to, a silent act of solidarity. He woke up early to exercise with her every single day. When she wanted to quit, he reminded her why she was fighting, his words a constant source of strength. When she felt discouraged, he meticulously showed her the small victories, the pounds lost, the distance walked, the undeniable improvements in her energy and mood. They cooked together in the evenings, experimenting with healthy recipes, laughing at their culinary mistakes. Taylor discovered he actually enjoyed cooking, enjoyed the simple, domestic activity of preparing meals with Maya, an unexpected pleasure in a life once devoid of such mundane joys. She taught him how to see joy in ordinary moments, how to value experiences and genuine connection over sterile possessions. 4 months into their marriage, a significant milestone, Taylor took Maya to another charity gala. This time, everything was profoundly different. Maya wore a new dress, one that elegantly showcased the 30 pounds she had lost, a testament to her dedication. But more importantly, she wore confidence, a quiet strength that radiated from within. She walked into that ballroom with her head held high, Taylor's hand firmly in hers, and she was radiant, a beacon of transformation. People noticed. The same women who had gossiped about her before now approached, their compliments a stark contrast to their previous cruelties, attempting to praise her transformation. Taylor watched Maya handle them with grace and dignity, neither accepting their false praise nor stooping to their superficial level. "I'm proud of you," Taylor whispered as they danced together later that evening, holding her close. "I'm proud of me too," Maya replied with a genuine, heartfelt smile. "But I couldn't have done it without you." "We're a team," Taylor said, pulling her closer, their bodies swaying in perfect synchronicity. "Yeah," Maya agreed, resting her head on his chest, a profound contentment in her voice. "We really are." But their journey wasn't over. As they approached the 6-month mark of their marriage, the anniversary of their contract's stipulated end, Maya suffered another health scare. Taylor came home from a meeting to find Maya collapsed on the bathroom floor, her face pale, her breathing labored, a terrifying echo of their first crisis. Terror gripped his heart as he once again called for an ambulance, as he held her and begged her to stay with him, as he followed her to the same hospital where this profound reality had first become clear months before. Dr. Lee met him in the waiting room, her expression serious, and Taylor felt his world tilting, bracing himself for the worst possible news. "Mr. King," Dr. Lee began, and Taylor's heart stopped, suspended in a moment of excruciating fear. "I need to talk to you about Maya's condition. Just tell me," Taylor said, his voice breaking, raw with emotion. "Whatever it is, just tell me." Dr. Lee's serious expression suddenly broke into a radiant smile, a beam of pure relief. "She's going to be fine, Mr. King. Better than fine, actually." Taylor blinked, utterly confused, disoriented by the unexpected shift. "What?" "Maya collapsed from exhaustion and low blood sugar. Nothing more," Dr. Lee explained, her voice joyful. "We ran comprehensive tests. Her blood pressure is significantly improved. Her heart function has increased by nearly 30%. She's lost over 50 pounds, and all her markers are moving in the right direction. Mr. King, whatever you two have been doing, it's working. If she continues on this path, Maya's prognosis is excellent. She is in fact exceeding all our expectations." Taylor felt his legs give out beneath him, and he sank into a chair, overwhelmed, tears streaming down his face. "She's going to be okay. She's going to be okay. She's going to be okay," Dr. Lee confirmed, her smile unwavering. "She needs to continue her current lifestyle, keep working with her medical team, and be careful not to push herself too hard. But yes, she's going to be okay." Taylor dropped his face into his hands and wept, openly, unashamedly. All the fear, all the crushing stress, all the profound love he'd been carrying for months, a silent, heavy burden, came pouring out in an unrestrained torrent. He cried in that hospital waiting room, not caring who saw, only caring that Maya, his Maya, was going to live. When he was finally allowed to see her, Taylor found Maya awake and apologetic. "I'm sorry I scared you," she said immediately, her voice soft with remorse. "I just pushed too hard at the gym today and I forgot to eat enough." Taylor crossed the room and kissed her, cutting off her words, his heart soaring with relief. When he pulled back, he was smiling through his tears, a mixture of joy and profound gratitude. "You're going to be okay." Dr. Lee said, "You're going to be okay." Maya's eyes widened, a fragile hope blossoming into disbelief. "Really? Really?" "Really," Taylor confirmed, his voice choked with emotion. "Your numbers are improving. Your heart is stronger. You're doing it, Maya. You're beating this." Maya started crying too, tears of relief and joy, and Taylor held her close as they both processed the overwhelming news. After months of fear and uncertainty, they finally, unequivocally, had hope. "Taylor," Maya said when they'd both calmed down, her voice soft, tentative, "our 6 months are up next week." Taylor tensed. He'd been trying desperately not to think about that, about the contract, the artificial boundary that had brought them together, but now threatened to tear them apart. "I know. So what happens now?" Maya asked, searching his face, her vulnerability palpable. Taylor took her hand, threading his fingers through hers, a gesture of permanence. "Now you marry me again. For real this time. No bets, no contracts, no expiration date, just you and me and the rest of our lives together." "Are you proposing to me in a hospital room?" Maya asked, laughing through her tears, a genuine, joyful sound. "I'm proposing to you everywhere, every day until you say yes," Taylor replied, his voice brimming with love. "Maya Brown, you changed my life. You taught me what actually matters, what true victory means. You showed me that some things can't be bought or won. They can only be earned through dedication, through sacrifice, and through love. And I love you more than I thought it was possible to love anyone. Will you marry me, really marry me?" Mary. Maya was crying openly now, tears of pure happiness. "Yes, yes, Taylor. I'll marry you, really marry you." Taylor leaned in and kissed her again. This kiss full of promise and future, a love that had been earned through hardship and profound transformation, a bond forged in the crucible of vulnerability. 6 months after their business arrangement wedding, they had a real ceremony. It was small and intimate, held in the sun-dappled garden of the community center where Maya worked, a symbolic rejection of Taylor's former opulent displays. Her family was there, his family was there, and Eric stood proudly as Taylor's best man, admitting with good-humored grace that he had indeed lost the bet, but had gained the profound satisfaction of seeing his friend become a truly better man, transformed from within. Maya wore a beautiful white dress, and Taylor couldn't take his eyes off her. Not because of how much weight she'd lost, but because of the pure joy radiating from her, the health and happiness that glowed from within, a testament to her fierce spirit and his unwavering love. "I love you," Taylor whispered as they stood at the altar, the words a sacred vow. "I love you too," Maya replied, her voice soft and full of emotion. When the minister asked if anyone objected to the marriage, a ripple of laughter went through the small crowd, because everyone there knew this was the most right, most true thing in the world. Taylor King had made a bet 6 months earlier, thinking he would win by controlling and manipulating a situation. Instead, he'd lost the bet and won everything that truly mattered. He'd found love, found purpose, found a partner who challenged him to be better, to be human. As he and Maya shared their first dance as a married couple, really married this time, Taylor thought about the arrogant, empty man he'd been just months before. That man would never have understood this joy, this profound contentment, this deep and abiding love. "What are you thinking about?" Maya asked, her head resting on his chest as they swayed gently to the music. "I'm thinking about how I made the best bet of my life," Taylor replied, his voice soft with reflection. "Even if I didn't know it at the time, Maya laughed, a joyful sound. You lost that bet, remember? No, Taylor said, pulling back to look into her eyes, his gaze full of conviction. I won. I won you. I won this life. I won everything that actually matters. We both won, Maya corrected softly, her eyes twinkling. We both won, Taylor agreed. And as they continued dancing, surrounded by people who loved them, Taylor King knew that for the first time in his life, he had truly won at something that mattered, not through manipulation or money or arrogance, but through love, commitment, and the willingness to change, to surrender to something far greater than himself. Maya's health continued to improve dramatically over the following months and years. She lost more weight, her heart grew stronger, and her doctors were amazed at her complete transformation, a testament to her resilience and the powerful support system she now had. But more importantly, she was truly happy, radiating a serene contentment that had once seemed impossible. She and Taylor built a life together based on mutual respect, genuine affection, and shared values, a stark contrast to the superficiality of Taylor's previous existence. Taylor changed, too, profoundly. He became more involved in charity work, particularly health initiatives, his sharpened mind now focused on making a tangible difference in the world. He and Maya started a foundation dedicated to helping people access the resources they needed for health transformations, providing free nutritionists, trainers, and critical medical care to those who couldn't afford it, a legacy of their own journey. 5 years after their bet turned into a real marriage, Taylor and Maya welcomed their first child, a healthy baby girl they named Grace, after the doctor who had helped save Maya's life and guided them through their darkest days. Taylor held his tiny daughter in his arms and looked at his wife, healthy and glowing and more beautiful than ever, feeling an overwhelming, almost unbearable gratitude. Who would have thought? Maya said softly, watching him with their baby, her voice filled with wonder, that a stupid bet would lead to all this? It was the best bet I ever made, Taylor replied, his heart overflowing. You lost that bet, remember? Maya teased gently, playfully. I lost $5 million, Taylor corrected, smiling down at baby Grace's tiny fingers wrapped trustingly around his thumb. But I gained everything else. I gained a universe. Maya rested her head on his shoulder, a perfect picture of contentment. Eric still brings it up at every family gathering. He earned that right, Taylor acknowledged. He saw something in both of us that we couldn't see ourselves. He saw potential, even if he used unconventional means to unlock it. The baby yawned, a tiny, perfect sound, and Taylor felt his heart swell with a love so vast it almost hurt. This was his life now, not the empty penthouse, but this warm, quiet moment with his wife and child, a living, breathing testament to transformation. Do you ever think about that first day at the cafe? Taylor asked, a nostalgic smile playing on his lips. When you sat down and told me you knew everything? Every day, Maya admitted, her voice soft. I was so scared. I actually agreed to marry a stranger because I thought I was dying and wanted to feel loved, even if it was fake. It wasn't fake, Taylor said firmly, decisively. Maybe it started that way, but it stopped being fake the moment I actually saw you, Maya. Truly saw you for the first time. When did it become real for you? Taylor considered carefully, his gaze distant as he replayed the turning points in his mind. The gala, when those women were talking about you, and I felt something break inside me. I realized I couldn't stand the thought of anyone hurting you. You were mine to cherish, not just to win. For me, it was in the hospital, Maya confessed. When I woke up and you were there looking terrified, I'd spent 8 months convinced nobody would care if I died. But you cared, Taylor. You really, truly cared. Grace made a small, contented sound, and Taylor gently rocked her, a silent promise to her and to Maya. I wish I could go back and tell that arrogant idiot who accepted Eric's bet what he was really signing up for. What would you tell him? Maya teased, enjoying this new, introspective Taylor. That he's about to meet the woman who will destroy his entire worldview. That she'll make him want to be better, because she deserves the best version of him. that she'll show him that true power lies not in control, but in surrender and love. That's very poetic for a ruthless businessman, Maya teased. Former ruthless businessman, Taylor corrected, his smile gentle. That man doesn't exist anymore. You killed him, Maya. Good, she said, her voice filled with affection. He needed to die. They stood in comfortable silence, the quiet hum of the city outside providing a gentle backdrop to their shared peace. Taylor, I need to tell you something. Maya's voice turned serious, a rare, earnest tone. His heart skipped a beat, a momentary flicker of the old fear. What's wrong? Are you okay? I'm healthy, better than healthy, she affirmed, her eyes shining with joy. I saw Dr. Lee last week. My heart function is completely normal. All my markers are perfect. She said if she didn't know my history, she'd never guess I'd had health problems. Based on my current trajectory, there's no reason I shouldn't live a completely normal, full lifespan. Taylor felt tears prickling his eyes once more, tears of immense relief and profound gratitude. He carefully transferred Grace to her bassinet, then pulled Maya into his arms, holding her tightly. You did it. You beat it. We did it. I never could have done this alone, Maya whispered into his chest. They held each other, processing the sheer magnitude of what they'd overcome together. 5 years ago, Maya had been given a grim prognosis, her future uncertain. 5 years ago, Taylor had measured success in dollars, his life a monument to material acquisition. Now, they were healthy, whole, and deeply, irrevocably in love, their lives a testament to the transformative power of connection. I have something to confess, Maya, Taylor said, a playful glint in his eye. I paid Eric back the $5 million from the bet, with interest. Maya's eyes widened in surprise. When? Why? About 3 years ago, after Grace was born, Taylor explained. I couldn't stand that our marriage had started as a financial transaction. It felt like a stain on something so pure. I paid him back every penny, plus 20% interest. Maya laughed through her tears, shaking her head in wonder. That sounds like Eric, secretly a romantic, strategically manipulative. He donated it to the foundation we started and matched it dollar for dollar, Taylor revealed. He always was a shrewd operator, even in matters of the heart. He's coming over tomorrow, Maya said, a thoughtful expression on her face. Wants to talk about something. The next day, Eric arrived, carrying an uncharacteristic nervousness. Thanks for seeing me, he said as they settled into the living room, the usual bravado subdued. Your family, Eric, Maya said warmly, offering him a cup of coffee. You're always welcome. Eric took a sip of coffee, then sat it down carefully, his hands clasped. I need to talk about the bet, the truth about why I really made it. Taylor and Maya exchanged glances, a silent understanding passing between them. I thought you made it because you wanted to challenge Taylor, Maya said, echoing their long-held belief. That's what I let everyone believe. But the truth is, I made it because I was worried about Taylor, Eric confessed, his voice tinged with regret. I watched my best friend become someone I didn't recognize, someone who collected women like trophies, who was utterly miserable despite all his success. His arrogance was a shield, but it also kept him hollow. Taylor sat back, stunned, a cold wave of realization washing over him. You made the bet to help me? But why Maya specifically? Taylor pressed, a new dimension to the manipulation unfolding. Eric's expression grew uncomfortable, his gaze shifting to Maya. Maya, we met about a year before the bet at a literacy program fundraiser. We talked for 5 minutes, but that conversation stayed with me. You mentioned dealing with health issues, a quiet battle. A few months later, I ran into your mother at a medical center. She told me about your diagnosis, about how you were struggling alone, how you were slowly giving up hope. She was terrified of losing you. She saw you retreating from life and wanted you to have a reason to keep fighting, a reason to transform. Maya's hand flew to her mouth, tears welling in her eyes. My mother knew. She knew you were going to introduce me to Taylor. She was desperate. Taylor felt a stir of anger, a resurgence of his old protective instincts, mixed with a deeper understanding. So, this was all manipulation. A grand strategic maneuver in our personal lives. Yes, Eric admitted, his gaze steady, meeting theirs. And I'm not sorry. I gambled that if I threw you two together, something might spark, something real. I was right. I acted as a catalyst. But what if you'd been wrong? Maya demanded, her voice shaking with the weight of the revelation. I had a backup plan, Eric stated, his voice firm. If Taylor treated you badly, if the bet went sour, I would have ended it and paid for all your medical treatment myself. I was watching always, but from the very first meeting I saw something change in Taylor's eyes. A spark ignited, a curiosity he hadn't shown in years. Taylor walked to the window, gazing out at the city he once thought he owned. You played God with our lives, Eric. You wielded influence like a covert geopolitical operator. I did, and I'd do it again, Eric replied, his conviction unwavering. Look at your life now compared to 5 years ago. Tell me honestly that you wish I hadn't made that bet, that you wish you were back in that empty penthouse, chasing only money. Taylor couldn't deny the truth. I don't wish that. But you should have told us sooner. We deserved honesty. There was never a right time, and I was afraid, Eric confessed, his voice softer now. Afraid you'd hate me. Afraid of shattering the delicate balance I'd created. Why tell us now? Maya asked, sensing a deeper motivation. Eric's expression softened, a rare vulnerability showing through. Because I met someone. Rachel. She's a teacher. She's kind and real, and she calls me out on my bullshit. For the first time, I'm terrified because I actually care about someone, genuinely. I want to know how you stopped being afraid of being vulnerable, of letting someone truly in. Maya walked over to Eric, placing a comforting hand on his arm. What you did was manipulative and dishonest, and it also might have saved my life. I'm angry and grateful and confused, but I understand why you did it. The truth is always better than manipulation, Taylor said, stepping away from the window, his gaze meeting Eric's. If you care about Rachel, tell her the truth. Don't try to control the situation, Eric, just be honest. That's terrifying, Eric admitted, running a hand through his hair. Love is terrifying, Maya agreed, a knowing smile on her face. It's also worth it, every single terrifying moment. Even when that person finds you through a manipulative bet? Eric asked, a hint of self-doubt in his voice. Even then, Taylor confirmed, a deep conviction in his tone. But no more secrets, Eric. If you're in our lives, in Grace's life, you need to promise us honesty. I promise, and I'm sorry, Eric said, a profound sincerity in his voice. Stay for dinner, Maya offered, a gesture of forgiveness and renewed friendship. Tell us about Rachel. Let's start fresh with honesty. Later that evening, after Eric left and Grace was sound asleep, Taylor and Maya sat on their balcony, looking out at the glittering tapestry of city lights. Are you angry? Maya asked, breaking the comfortable silence. About what Eric did? I am, but I'm also profoundly grateful, Taylor admitted, his voice reflective. If he hadn't made that bet, I never would have met you. I'd still be that empty, arrogant, lost person. And I might not be here at all, Taylor. I was giving up. We saved each other, Taylor corrected softly, squeezing her hand. We did. And now maybe we can help Eric save himself, truly, and embrace vulnerability. They sat in comfortable silence, hands intertwined, the sounds of the city a distant hum. Grace made a small, soft sound through the baby monitor before settling back to sleep. You know what I realized today? Taylor said, a profound understanding settling over him. I don't care how we started anymore. What we have now is real. What we've built together is real. The rest is just history, the chaotic path that led us here. Maya squeezed his hand, a playful glint in her eyes. That's very wise for a former arrogant billionaire. I learned from the best, he replied, leaning his head against hers. They stayed on the balcony, talking about everything and nothing, making plans and dreaming about the years to come, their future now boundless and full of shared purpose. When they finally went inside, Taylor paused at Grace's nursery door, watching his daughter sleep, a tiny, perfect embodiment of their love. 5 years ago, he had accepted a bet, thinking it was just another game to win, another conquest to add to his ledger. It hadn't been a game. It had been fate, disguised as manipulation, a divine intervention in the guise of a corporate wager. He had bet on controlling a situation and lost control of everything. He had bet on maintaining his arrogance and found humility. He had bet on winning money and lost his heart completely. And in losing, he had won everything that actually mattered. A love, a family, a purpose that transcended all his previous ambitions. Maya appeared beside him, slipping her arm around his waist, her presence a tangible comfort. Together, they watched their daughter breathe, a silent testament to their shared journey. "No regrets," Maya whispered, her voice a soft affirmation. "Not a single one," Taylor confirmed, and he meant it. Every manipulated moment, every painful revelation, every health scare, every profound transformation. He would do it all again, endure every challenge if it meant ending up here, in this moment, with her and their child. The bet had changed everything. Taylor King, the man who once thought he could win at anything through sheer force of will, had finally learned the most important lesson of his life. Sometimes, the best victories come from surrendering completely, from letting go of control and embracing the unpredictable, messy, beautiful truth of love. He followed Maya to bed, ready to wake up tomorrow and continue building the extraordinary life they'd fought so hard to create. A life built on truth, on profound love, on continuous transformation, a life that had started with a bet, but had become so much more, everything that truly mattered.